Is going on, Panthers Nation? Carolina Dad here, back. How are you folks doing? It feels like years since I've talked to you because the Panthers don't have a game, and I have created so much content in the interim that I'm at a loss of words of just how to come in here and do a podcast because it's just been that kind of week as I've been just knocking out video after video after video. I gotta say, I've got to plug it. If you're not following me on YouTube, get out there, search 2 Growls, 1 Roar. There is so much content for you. So the way moving forward, I'm still going to continue this podcast as a weekly episode. Now that we're in the off season, like 1 per week, unless there's some crazy stuff that comes out. But there's going to be so much more content on the YouTube channel. So far, I've created previews of every single one of the coaching candidates. All that is available right at your fingertips. I just before this episode recorded a GM update, some additional coaching profiles that I did not have, playoff predictions, and ranking the coaches for the Carolina Panthers. So I appreciate the folks that listen in, and you can watch it on Spotify, you can listen on Apple, you can listen on Spotify or wherever you get the podcast. But I want you to know that there's so much more content out there, and there will continue to be. So go and get all the Panthers content you want, or even follow me on social media. X is like the primary platform where I like to post and engage. I put a lot of stuff out there. Like today, I dropped some nuggets on wide receivers that we should be eyeing heading into the offseason, but not your tier 1 wide receivers, really looking at some of the names that may not be at the top of the list, trying to figure out, hey, what about this guy versus this guy? And what I did, if I can pull it up, I'll just drop the knowledge for you. So I started looking at, this one, if we need a number 1 receiver, we're going to have to probably get that through a trade or the draft. And I don't know what that means right now, because it likely means that we're going to have to give up something to get to where we want to go. And that something could be a Brian Burns. Just me talking out loud. I'm not saying we should give him up. But looking at some of the names, so the $10 to $11 million per year range, which is pretty reasonable for a wide receiver, and there's not a lot of production out there, not a lot of free agent wide receivers. But Curtis Samuel, the same Curtis Samuel that was here, he's moved, or was it Washington? His current market value is a little bit higher than I'd like to pay, but I do think he's, a good number 2, number 3 when you pair him with Mingo, with Adam, and you get in a true number 1 wide receiver. If you didn't go with him, you've got Tyler Boyd. I know he's not T. Higgins for the folks that love T. Higgins, but I do think he's also a complementary piece. Then we get a tier down, which is this $5 million range. And again, this isn't my money, but this is just to help you understand the salary cap, because we're not going to be able to go out here and get 3 $20 million receivers. The $5 million range, DJ Chark. Yes, the same DJ Chark that was already on the roster. I know people are going to knock him for late season performance, but I think pairing him with Bryce and what he's done gives us an opportunity to help them grow a little bit, and you just do another 1-year contract. That's really if nothing else becomes available and you can't really get, who you want to get. Kendrick Bourne, out of the New England Patriots. He had a season-ending ACL tear, but he was on pace for his best year yet. He's 28 years old, coming off an ACL injury. I think you could probably get a 1-year contract in that $5 million range, maybe even cheaper. And so I would love to keep our eyes, focused on him and where he's going to land. He should be back. I think this happened in October. So he should be back in time for when the season starts. In the $2 to $3 million range, another name, Amir Smith-Marset. I only say it because, he was here. He's already got, familiarity with the Panthers, with Bryce Young, and playing together. So I think he'll be a name, and you could probably lock him up for 2 or 3 years, and that $2 to $3 million range, just pretty cheap for a wide receiver if you expect his production to continue to grow. Now, there's been a lot that's happened, folks. So if you have not been in tune, and I'll do this for the folks that are not or have not watched videos. One, Scott Fitter is gone. I've asked for it. You've heard me talk about it. Gone. Out. Peace. See ya. Now, in his place is assistant GM that's moved to the interim GM, Dan Morgan. There's a lot of stuff happening, folks. So we're in a phase, and I guess I didn't actually talk about this too much as well, but we've got Tepper hiring Sportsology, which is a firm that is here to help in the coaching search, the GM search, help with reorganization, restructuring of the organization itself. In my mind, I think where things are going to go is we're going to get a GM that's focused on football, player development, scouting. We're going to get an operations person, which is like vice president of operations, whatever you want to name the title, that'll meld together. And then we know we're going to get a new head coach. Talking about the head coach and the head coaching candidates, if you've not heard, Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator, he was here last year, interviewed. Bobby Slowick, offensive coordinator for the Texans. Brian Callahan of the Bengals. Dan Quinn of the Cowboys, although I feel like Quinn's going to remain. Well, now you got the Seattle job. Does he go there? So I think if the Cowboy job stays and Cowboys go on a run and McCarthy's still there, I think you could see Quinn going up to Seattle. The Ravens defensive coordinator, Mike McDonald. Dolphins offensive coordinator, Frank Smith. Rams defensive coordinator, Raheem Morris. Ravens offensive coordinator, Todd Monken. And then Buccaneers offensive coordinator, Dave Canales. We also added Brian Johnson, who's the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. And then Chris Tabor and Ejiro Evero to the list. And we just got this hot off the press. It's a good thing I waited till 11 o'clock at night to record this. The virtual interview for Chris Tabor was completed yesterday as I record. Yesterday was Wednesday the 10th. On the 11th, which is today, got confirmation that Ejiro Evero, Todd Monken, and Mike McDonald went through their virtual interviews. And if you're wondering why Evero and Tabor are going through virtual interviews, they tried to keep it the same for all coaches, no matter, the coaches are here, which whatever, that's their philosophy if they want to do that. It doesn't make much sense for me. Like, I understand you're trying to follow a process and a flow, but that's like overthinking it, in my opinion. Like, yeah, okay, you're going to have a better relationship or experience in a one-on-one interview in person with someone that you already know. Like, how awkward is it? Like, if you're thinking about going in for a promotion for work and they're like, oh yeah, we're also looking at XYZ people outside of this organization and we're going to have you do it virtually. So I want you to go home. You're not going to come into work tomorrow. I know it's a little bit different because this is an NFL team and we know that the turnover is going to happen and they're likely not coming back. But it's just stupid. Use your brain, folks. Use your dang brain. And we get into this state now is to like open up the show where we've got to talk about the coaches in the openings and who's who. Not bringing down the coaches, but there have been so many unplanned openings. The Falcons are becoming a hot name. Look what just happened with New England, with Tennessee. This has got to be the wildest off season in months, not months. I hope so. This is what I get for doing it late. I feel like retro deja vu with me going back in time and doing these when Pearson was like, weeks old. For those who don't know, that's our son. And anyways, doing those late at night and having crazy mess ups and thoughts. But you look at the coaching carousel, where people are and where they may or may not go. Man, the Panthers have to be at the bottom or near the bottom of the pecking order now. Like when you only had 3 or 4 openings, you're like Chargers, Raiders, like, okay, we got a decent chance to land someone. You start comparing other organizations, one, just ownership of those organizations. Then you start comparing draft capital of those organizations. Like think about if I'm Ben Johnson and I can come into the Commanders and I have that, high draft pick, I can do what I want. We've got these additional draft picks. Like yeah, I think I'm going to take that opportunity to go there and, start fresh the way that I want to. And when we compare organizations and how things are going, the Commanders are night and day above everyone else right now. Like, they've already got their final 2 GM candidates in, sorted through who's going to do what, starting all these interviews. And I will say the Panthers have picked up pace, at least with the interviews for the head coaches. Taking a break. But I think what we've also are starting to see is the dynamic of what we are doing at the GM, or for hiring a GM, I should say. And I did the research myself, so you don't have to do it, but if you want to go do it, you can. And the reason that I feel strongly, one with Sportsology being involved, but just in general, strongly that this is the route we're going, is when I broke down some of these profiles of the candidates, it really was 2 categories. Category 1 was like vice president of football operations. And you have these salary cap gurus and managers that can restructure, sign, negotiate, do all their magic there. And in that bucket, you have Samir Suleiman, who's already with the Panthers, Brandon Tillis of the Chiefs, Kai Harley of the Saints, Nick Mateo of the Ravens, Mike Disner of the Lions, Mike Greenberg, not Mike Greenberg of ESPN, for the Bucks. Then you flip that, and I think you've got true GM candidates that are player development, scouting, personnel, more on that side of the ball, or saying that side of the ball, more on that side of being a GM in operations. So that you have Champ Kelly, who's the interim GM right now for the Raiders, Dan Morgan, we all know Dan Morgan for the Panthers, Alec Halaby of the Eagles, and then Brandon Brown of the Giants. And those are your categories. So I really think you do have 2 separations, because if you look at one group, you can see the heavy focus in analytics and data in the top tier with, like I said, cap structure and management. The bottom, you see the guys who actually see the players, understand them, can make the good decisions, who to draft, who not to draft, who to sign. And I'll say this from where I sit. The Panthers, I love Dan Morgan. I love what he is to the Panthers, but he is not my choice for the candidate to take over this team as an interim GM, or as the GM, I should say. Not my choice. We've seen the track record with him. We've seen the track record with Scott Fitter, and I know he's involved somewhat in there. You can say that Scott made the decision, or that Matt Rule was making the decision. I don't really care who was making the decision. It's clear that our talent evaluators and evaluations of everything is just off. Whether it's free agents, whether it's draft picks, we're not hitting, and we have got to hit on day 2, day 3 guys. Guys that are 3rd, 4th, 5th rounders that can contribute to the team, that can be here long term. When you get better contracts, with those later day guys versus some of the guys in the first few rounds that, you have to pay a lot more money to. But I think it's all just part of like this new phase of football. And there's a lot of people that are worried that we are looking to hire the coach before the GM. So in a traditional standpoint, way back, the GM would be the one who helped make the decision to hire the coach, because you want to make sure that as a GM, this is how I like to work. It's the type of team that I want to put together for this coach and how it's going to be. It's kind of flipped. Like, that's just the way it is in this day and age, where the coach is in more control. And I think the other thing with, just as we talk about this guy tied to this guy, and there is some validity to Mike Disner of the Lions and Ben Johnson of the Lions, or the 2 guys, McDonald from the Ravens, or Monken from the Ravens, and Mateo from the Ravens. Like, those things are connected. But the way I like to think about it is, okay, if I'm working wherever I work today, and the way I see it is like, I'm sure these folks interact or see each other, know each other, but it's not like working on the same team. Like, as a coordinator for these guys, they're out there working on the game plan every single day, every single week. And in the offseason, probably more interaction. But it's not like they're in there every single day, connected, working together and know each other by name and like, oh yeah, this is the style. Like I don't even know if they could tell you like his favorite color or what he likes to drink in the mornings or any name of his kids even. Like maybe, but I don't believe that's that type of relationship. So I think we over index and emphasize the fact that these guys are somehow connected from this, and this. And it's just like not a thing in my book. There's only been a few times in my life where I've like crossed over work with someone that I've worked with in like a previous experience. And it has been like I helped get the person, like I want them to work and we got them recruited over. And that was because I was like, I knew day in and day out that type of person. But this is almost like, oh yeah, we want you to go refer your friends, brothers, whatever. And like that's your connection to it. I don't know why I'm going on that rant, but it was just top of mind for me. So as we talk about GMs, I'm going to take a little water break because, again, this is like video 6 that I've recorded tonight. We did have interim GM Dan Morgan making a few transactions right here this week. As I pulled up my list, if you followed the mock draft tracker, that's the other thing I should say is I plug this stuff. I've got 2 mock drafts available on YouTube exclusively. You can watch them all out there. Anyways, I started to highlight some of the guys I thought the Panthers should bring back off the current roster. They brought 2 of those guys back in LeBrian Ray and Nick Thurman. They both got 1-year extensions. And then tight end Steven Sullivan also got a 1-year extension, and I think that's fine. Like, all 3 of those guys, good players, good contributors to the team. And I think for, whoever comes in after that, like, I don't think that's a bad move that we're going to have to like worry and clean up. And then on the other end of this, we also signed 11 members of last season's practice squad. So bringing all those guys back, let's see, Tariq Cohen, Mike Boone, Spencer Brown, Jalen Camp, Cam Sims, Jordan Matthews, Chris Pierce, Badara Trayor, Raekwon Williams, AJ Parker, and Lamar Jackson, not the Lamar Jackson, the cornerback. And, for me, just again, as I watch this through this season, quite a different practice squad list from like day one. So many changes happened. Tariq's been on there. He was injured, but Spencer Brown played a little bit in, back in the preseason, not a ton. We saw him a little bit last year. Who else was on there that just popped? That's really like, it's quite a bit, but we'll go through in this off season and start to looking at the practice squad, because that's again a portion of who makes this team. And that was one thing that, whether you like Frank or not, he overemphasized, was like whoever we see out here on the practice squad, at some point they're going to get called up for whatever injury, or we just need them for a day, for a game, 2 games, special teams, contributor. So I think it is important to understand like who these guys are on this roster. Going back to my notes. All right. I think the last update is Germany. We're headed to Germany, folks. I talked about this, I guess, a year ago-ish. It hasn't been a year since I've the pod, but it's close. And announced that the Panthers were going to be playing in Germany. Got the confirmation officially. Now, the rumors were originally that it was going to be against the Chiefs. It will be a home game for the Panthers, but I saw Joe Person tweet that it's not the Chiefs. So I guess we'll wait to find out which team they're going to play. I would love for them to pick a team, I don't know, the Cowboys or someone that could bring a big audience to Bank of America that will take over the stadium. Just ship them over to Germany with the Panthers so we don't have to worry about them taking over Bank of America. That's just my personal opinion, man. Well, folks, I did not do a year-end recap of the Panthers. I will do that, give out, final grades, wrap up the season. The season's over, but just wrap it up. I'll get that done before the end of the playoffs, because as I've seen, we're going to get really slow here. Well, say that, and we're hiring coaches and GMs and We'll have to build out the team around them, start to talk about free agency, but those things will take time, and I'll have a little bit of time to fill in some more episodes. So anyways, folks, that's all I got for today. This is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.